Welcome back with Vesa, and today I figured we would take a little bit of a look into, well, the commanders again. Because there's this one specific commander, or this commander build, that will absolutely devastate your enemies without even having to fire a shot. And I think we all know what we're talking about here. The Grenade Mander. Alright, let's get on into it. So, when I say the Grenade Mander, I'm sure many of you have already heard of this or are thinking of this. It's when you give one of your commanders the internal grenade racks upgrade. So, what happens is when you give this commander, in the Retaliation cadre, mind you, when you give this commander the internal grenade racks upgrade, it gets the grenades keyword, which means that it can throw grenades, like many of your infantry can. Battlesuits typically don't get to throw grenades, though. After that, when it flies over an enemy unit, you do d6 mortals on every 4 plus once you've completed your move over an enemy unit. And it just says a fly, like you're just completing a fly move. That's it. That's all that's necessary. So, what I'm looking at here is this lovely commander getting the keyword and flying over your opponents. How can we maximize the amount of damage that we can do with this? Well, it's very simple. You fly over a unit first, and then you roll your dice, and on 4 plus you do mortals. Then you use the grenade strat, which means you get to throw a grenade at them again. And then you use the Torch Star Gambit, where you jump back over the same unit that you just flew over, and you get to roll the dice and do, because you moved over them again, it's six dice on every 4 plus. You do mortals. You do this, and you will average about 9 mortal wounds. This is just the average. This isn't if it spikes. The average, the bare minimum you should be expecting is 9 mortal wounds. Well, not bare minimum. Bare minimum will be 0. But we're being optimistic today. On average, that will kill 9 guardsmen. You've completely wiped the unit without even firing a shot. 4.5 Space Marines, any small units of 5, just 1 wound left. This is before shooting. 3 dead Terminators. 3 dead Terminators. And 9 wounds to any vehicle. That is a lot. Anything that you're going into is just completely decimated. And this is before you even shoot. If you're going into like a big 20-man brick of guardsmen, you give it to a cold star, you load them up with the burst cannons and the flamers, you'll completely torch that squad with the commander alone. Into Space Marines, missile pods. Completely decimated. And they can take a cyclic ion blaster. Like, that alone will be able to take care of the last 2 guys. Well, no, like the last 1 wound guy for the Space Marine. For your Terminators, you can do fusions into them, or you can do your plasma rifles. You load them up 4 plasma rifles, you're going to hit just about all of them, you'll wound most all of them, and then it's 50-50 shot on whether you kill the last 2 or they make the 4 invulns. It's still pretty dang good. And 9 wounds to a vehicle, give them 4 fusions, totally finish him off. Now, this is just the beginning of the mortal wound spam that we can throw at people. You add Farsight into this. And I know what you're thinking. Farsight can't throw grenades. What's the mortal wound thing that Farsight can do? Easy. Farsight can do tank shock when he charges an enemy unit, because he's in a battle suit and it's technically a vehicle. Well, it's got the vehicle keyword. So, you will average about 4 mortal wounds on top of that, depending on what you're targeting. Usually people spike a bit more with Farsight thrown around as huge strength send sword into stuff. But I digress. You will total about 13 mortal wounds. You throw that into a guardsman squad, that's 10 dead guardsmen, and then 3 wounds onto the leading character of that unit, or 13 dead guardsmen. Not to mention, Farsight will wipe the rest of them in melee. And on top of it, the character would probably be dead if it was just a 10-man. Though I don't think you'd really be spending this tank shocking a bunch of little guardsmen when you're charging Farsight and probably able to kill them all. You do that into a Space Marine unit, and that's 6.5 dead Space Marines. if it's a full 10-man squad and they're not combat squatting up, Farsight will easily be able to play cleanup on the last 3.5. And 4 dead Terminators. Or 4 1/3 dead Terminators. We're getting really precise about all this. Before you even draw the sword, before you even fire a shot. That means Farsight only has to plink 2 wounds off the last guy. Or if it's 2 wounds off the last guy and the character leading it. Easy for him to do. Without a doubt. Definitely take him down. And Farsight probably wouldn't die in the process. That's 13 wounds to a vehicle. 13 wounds to a vehicle. Without firing a shot. You wouldn't... that will kill most all vehicles. Or at least not kill them, bracket them seriously, and put them down to 1 or 2 wounds. And that means that Farsight can clean up in the melee phase. Because, well, yeah, he's got Strength 10 sword. And most vehicles are T9, T10. You wound on 3s and 4s. That'd be great. This absolutely is devastating. And he hasn't even fought a melee. You haven't even shot anything at this one thing that you're looking at to take down. That being said, it does cost a little bit of CP. Just a little bit. So if you're running an Ethereal in there to make it so that you can actually farm enough CP to make this a bit more viable, that might be a little bit of an issue. Just a little thought. So this, but like I was saying, this doesn't include shooting. So, in case it wasn't obvious, we're going to be using the Cold Star here. Because he's got more mobility and will be able to clear over bigger units or get to those units that you'll want to be jumping over in order to just sprinkle mortal wounds all over them. We're totally going to be packing him with the Cyclic Ion Blaster. It's pretty much anti-everything, especially in the Retaliation cadre. With how close you're going to be with him, you'll be getting the boost in Strength, pumping him up to Strength 9, or, just keeping him at 8. And if you don't overcharge it, he's still at Strength 8. And then the extra armor penetration, pushing him up to AP 3. And that'll be pushing just about everybody up to a 6. If not, it'll be pushing them onto their invulns. Or, a 5, which is still pretty bad. And then we're going to totally be popping in the high output burst cannon. Because it is much better anti-elite in the Retaliation cadre with the armor penetration boost and the strength boost. Not to mention just the insane amount of shots on that wonderfully good ballistic skill. And for the last little bit, I'm thinking a missile pod, some little extra sprinkling of anti-elite, and then a shield generator. Because, let's be real, we're going to need a lot of durability out of this guy so he can last the entire game to get us all those extra mortal wounds that we need. Because this will be helping us dodge a lot of melee that we just can't afford to be in. So, I think that if you were to put him in specific Crisis Suit squads, you'd probably alter the loadout a little bit in order to make it complement specifically what he's in. But overall, he's going to be very much so an up close and personal, jump over your opponents. You're also going to need your other suits to clear it so you can make sure you get the grenades in. Or you can run him solo. Have him be a really annoying threat to jump up and down the field and have your opponent try to pin down and take out so they don't completely get decimated with the mortal wounds. This, I think, helps us with a little bit of the melee lacking that we have, because we completely skip having to actually hit, wound, and do damage in melee, and our opponent getting a save, and we get to just jump over them, and are completely safe the entire time. It's a very Tau thing. But I do think that Farsight would be a wonderful complement to this. You have him, and you have Farsight, and you've just got 2 guys that automatically decimate everything.
I'd like to thank my patrons, the new Vivek, Samjer, Ryan Hall, David Palilio, K-Mag, Jonathan Patino, Chris F., Mark, Magnus Thrody, and created by Philip. Thank you all very much for keeping the lights on out here. I'm so sorry for taking so long on all of this. We will get so much more content out for all of you in the near future, and I hope your day goes for the greater good. God bless y'all.